My name is Trinity, and this is my first ever Booktube video. For the first video, I thought it would be fun to talk about all of my absolute favorite books / book series. I have a cup of tea with me. It's rather hot, but I recommend getting some. Starting off with one of my absolute favorite series, that is The Lord of the Rings by J.R.R. Tolkien. I'm sorry, that's my furry companion, Baby. She's sneezing below the camera line. Anyways, one of my absolute favorite series is The Lord of the Rings by J.R.R. Tolkien. And these books are centered, are in the world of Middle-earth, is where these are set, and it follows a lot of characters, but I'd say one of the main characters is Frodo Baggins, and it's a pretty well-known book series. I'm sure you've heard of it and know what it's about, and these are some of my absolute favorites to read. I will say if you like fast-paced fantasy books, these are a little slower paced, and there's a lot of storyline that goes on throughout all three of them, but they are absolutely worth reading. They're amazing. And I try to reread them every year. I mean, I love them so much. Next, I have the Gateway Trilogy by Crystal D. Grant. Unfortunately, there's only 2 out. I'm waiting for the third one. I'm so excited for it. And I don't see anybody talk about these ones. They're not super well known, but they're really amazing. Specifically the second one, which is Lightshed. I mean, the plot in this one and the character development is insanity, and they've got gorgeous covers. These ones are set in, there's like 2 different parts of the whole world. I'm not sure what the whole world together is called, but there's the old realm and the new realm, and the new realm is called Ignadan, and the old realm is called Paladin. And these books center around the Dark Army fighting against the stewards for control of the Gateway, which is the only connection between the 2 worlds. And the 2 main characters of this one are Mason Gray, who is part of the Dark Army, and they're trying to take over both realms, and they're fighting to get control of the Gateway. And then the second character is, I just forgot her name. Sierra, that's what I thought it was. And how they meet is there is a battle between the stewards and the Dark Army, and Mason is wounded, and he's disguised as a steward, and Syria thinks she's not in the army, but she supports the steward side, and so she takes him in and heals him from his wounds without knowing that he's actually a bad guy. And then there's a little bit of romance, but it's not the main focus, I'd say. And the characters in this book are just so well developed. They feel real, just like everything they experience and feel. And there is some artwork throughout the book. Unfortunately, there is no artwork in the second book, but only the first one. But yeah, the characters are just so well developed, and also the world, it really explains it well without making it super boring and monotonous. I think I said that wrong, but anyways, I'm so excited for the third book, and these are just amazing books. And even if you read the first one and are not super into it, just read it so you can read the second one, which is absolutely amazing. I love this one. 6 out of 5 stars. One of my favorite books ever. Kind of perfection, to be honest. I don't think I ever was bored. They're pretty long books, but I read this in 2 days. It was amazing. Can't talk enough about it, and I cannot wait to see how it ends. Next, I have the Stormlight Archive by Brandon Sanderson. The sizes are really different. These are the first 2, and this is the third one. And I haven't read the third one yet. I've only read Words of Radiance and The Way of Kings, and The Way of Kings is number 1. And these books are really intimidating just due to how big they are, but they are amazing. I think the best way I could describe these books is one of those roller coasters where it kind of starts off slow and it you know, not going fast, just sitting there, going up. And then you hit a certain point and it just launches you and you kind of get severe whiplash. I think that's the best way I could describe these books, and I absolutely love them for it. Both of these have been 5 stars. There's always like this one specific part in the book that really makes my heart pound. It like actually gives me anxiety about what's gonna happen. And this is set in the world of Ronin, I think is how you say that. Hang on. Oh, it's Roshar, not Ronin. And it follows, there's a lot of characters throughout the book that get introduced. And this one I feel mainly centers around Kaladin, Dalinar, and Shalin. And I'm not going to go too in depth just because of how there's so much that happens in this book. I couldn't really talk about all of it. But I definitely recommend these ones. Even though they're really big, I mean, I read these really fast just because they're so gripping and you just really want to know what happens. And the way the world is built, it definitely feels real. And the characters too. There's, I think, 5 now because the newest one came out in November. So I definitely have to get to reading them. I got these all at the thrift store, so that's why the sizes are way different. But I highly recommend these all, the whole series. I also know that there is a novella between Words of Radiance and Oathbringer. I think it's called like Edge Dancer or something. So I'm not sure you have to read that one to understand Oathbringer, but I would like to. Next I have, I'm not sure if this is considered a classic, I think it is, but that is Watership Down by Richard Adams. And I think this is one of my favorite like book covers that I own. It's just so beautiful, and it's got a quote on the back. But this is told from a rabbit's point of view. And I like the way he writes the animals because he writes them in a way where they feel like they're animals, like they have their like fight or flight instincts throughout the whole book. And so they definitely feel like actual animals and not basically an animal with a human brain like some other books are written. And it is a gorgeous copy. But this follows Hazel and his brother. It's been a little while since I've read it, and there's a lot of names, so I don't remember the brother's name. But they're living at this warren, and the brother kind of has like this special connection to things, and he gets this like sign that the warren is going to get destroyed. So him, his brother, and some other rabbits, they go on this journey and leave the warren behind. And it's a pretty long book, but it's amazing, and I really love this book. It's just so unique in how it's written, and I definitely recommend this one. It is a little violent, and just like some of the parts are a little creepy, but I do still recommend this one, and I love it so much. Ugh. Next, I have yet another classic, and that is Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. This is a pretty well-known book as well, and the movie's really good. I have only seen the 2005 one, but I've heard the other one's pretty good too. It follows Elizabeth Bennet and her sisters, and they live in... It's funny, every time I go to talk about a book, I like forget everything that happened in it. But I don't quite remember where they live. It's basically their journey on finding like a husband, sort of, and it follows all the sisters. And this, once like Lord of the Rings, is definitely not a very fast-paced book. It's got a lot of beautiful prose and sentence structure, so it does take a little longer to read in my opinion, but I definitely think it's worth it because it's such a well-written story, and it just is really, it feels like a work of art reading it. And I definitely, if you're getting into classics, excuse me, I would recommend this one. I have only read one other Jane Austen book, and that is Sense and Sensibility. And I do think I liked Pride and Prejudice more, but maybe that's because I read it first. And I've also seen the movie. I don't know, but I would recommend just Jane Austen in general, but start with Pride and Prejudice. Lastly, I think this is maybe one of my favorite book series ever that is not very talked about, and that is The Cottage Tales of Beatrix Potter by Susan Wittig Albert. So these are a mix of fiction and nonfiction because it follows Beatrix Potter, the famous child's book author and artist, and she moves to Surrey, which is a small lake town in the UK. And it's nonfiction in the sense that a lot of the events in this book did happen in her real life, and just her relationships with people. But it's nonfiction, it's fiction in the sense that these mysteries happen and she solves them. And I just love them so much. They're super cozy, and it also has the animals of the village, like the cats and the dog. And there are some fairies and mythical creatures throughout the series. There's 8 books, and this is just the first one, which is The Tale of Hilltop Farm. I have the other 7 over on my shelves, but I just didn't want to get all of them down. So it's just the first one, and it's just so enchanting and whimsical reading these because the mysteries are pretty lighthearted. It's not anything gruesome murders. It's just some of them, and they're all different. That's another thing I like about them. All the mysteries are different. Some of them are thefts, and some of them are murders, but they don't go into detail or anything. And the romance is really sweet between Beatrix Potter and the man she fell in love with in real life. It's really sweet. It almost makes me sad every time I read them because besides Beatrix Potter and Will Heelis, which is who she married in real life, all the other characters are fictional, or most of all the other characters are fictional, and they just feel so real. It's kind of sad every time I think about it that they're not real, but I just adore this series. It's so cute and whimsical. And I love the whimsical aspects that are occasionally in the books. My favorite one is the 4th one, and that's The Tale of Briar Bank, and it's got one of my favorite characters that's introduced in that book. So yeah, I would 100% recommend these books. I haven't read anything other by her, but I know she has another mystery series. This one just really has basically everything I like in a book. Well, thank you so much for watching this whole video, and I hope that you might pick up some of the books that I love and love them too. And I am so excited to be on and doing Booktube. And once again, thank you for watching, and goodbye.